Hey guys, what's the real reason that Americans are a bunch of wusses today? I don't see anybody willing to really and truly defend their home and their life like people did in the past. I don't see anybody willing to sacrifice their own life for the welfare of others or others' rights anymore. It's a very sad situation. I respect our military, but I don't think that they're really defending our rights over there in Afghanistan. I'm not threatened. My rights are not threatened by Osama bin Laden. My rights have been threatened by our own government through things like the Patriot Act. I want to read to you a little bit from a book that we're reading our children. It's a child's book. It's actually a diary by Lucinda Lawrence. And she talks about a situation. This was in Texas, before Texas was actually a state in our union. And it was back in 1835. And this girl, she was at a house, with a neighbor's house, and these soldiers, American soldiers, were going door to door, kicking in the doors, and demanding money and food and whatnot. And I want to show you what these people did back in 1835. And I want you to think about events like Hurricane Katrina, when it wasn't even American soldiers that were kicking in doors, rather it was private corporations like Blackwater that were kicking in doors. I wanted to show you what these people were willing to do against American soldiers to protect their own lives and their own livelihoods from them. We scrambled under the bed and shook like scared puppies. The sound of shouting men and breaking glass and splintering wood grew louder as the rampaging soldiers got closer. Men's voices and heavy footsteps reached the front porch. Then I heard the thump of an axe against the door. Mitty began shaking and whimpering, so I put my hand over her mouth. The door crashed, and Mrs. Rose said in a voice as hard as flint, "One step closer, sir, and I'll shoot." Peeking out, I saw a scraggly man dressed in uniform stopped in his tracks. He backed onto the dog trot slowly. His friends laughed. "We want our due," he said. "Take another step and you'll receive your just due in Hades," Mrs. Rose said. Now I want you to tell me how many Americans would be that courageous to defend their house against soldiers. You see, I don't know many people who would do something like that. And I'm wondering what the reason is for that. My hypothesis is that basically people have been brainwashed by our media, brainwashed by the public school system, and also fluoridated very heavily through our water supply. If you're not familiar what fluoride does to you, well, basically it started when the Jews were in the Holocaust camps, and they tried to make people docile by giving them fluoride in their water, which is the same sodium fluoride that they're putting in our water today. And basically it's a very creepy scenario, because I think back to what these people had in these days. They had homes without air conditioning or power or anything like that. They didn't even have it nearly as good as what we have it today, as we have things today. But yet they're willing to defend their home and the people in their home and what little possessions they had with their lives. This lady, her husband was gone, and she was in a house alone with a little girl who is 13 years old and her daughter who is even younger. And she points her rifle directly at an American soldier and tells him that she'll put his ass in Hades if he comes closer. And I really believe she would have. I'm going to be like the old Reading Rainbow show and say, if you want to find out more, you got to read the book. I don't want to ruin it for you. It's a great diary series, and it's the Dear America diary series. It has a lot of neat patriotic things in it. I'd highly recommend it to anybody, especially anybody with kids. But anyway, I'm wondering, how many people do you really know that are willing to go through death and get in a gunfight with whoever to defend their home and their things and the people around them? How many people do you know would be willing to go through terrible pain and suffering and not fear pain, not fear death in order to defend their home? See, I don't think many people would. I think we've been duped, and that is exactly why, with the economic collapse coming and our government running over us, that these things are going to happen, and it's inevitable that we're going down. The country is going down. The collapse is going to happen. Nobody's going to resist any type of martial law or anything like that. So you got to get yourself ready. Absolutely, I don't advocate violence. These women were in a jam. But if you see things coming, you need to get yourself out of the way. If you see a freight train heading in your direction, you step aside. It's very simple survival logic. So you need to get yourself ready. You need to find a place in the country. You need to grow a garden or a pirate garden out in the country. Buy a cheap mobile home way off somewhere. Or even build a sod house. There's neat pictures of stucco sided sod homes that you can build. There's instructions on the internet, and they look pretty neat. And you could just basically skip the grid. You could even buy land under a 501c3 church name that anybody can get, and it'll be one step off of your personal name. And you could make a dwelling and not even tell the county about it if you felt like it. So anyhow, I just wanted to share that little story with you. It's just incredible to see the bravery. I mean, these women were like 50 times tougher than the men of today. I mean, they might have even been way tougher than that. I don't know any man. Most men I know, if they had soldiers at their door, be it ours or China's or anything, they would bend over. Most men I know, they would bend over and say, "Hey, if you want to probe me, you go right ahead." It's quite amazing, guys. It's right here in this girl's diary. This is real stuff. So why do you think that people today are incredibly weak and cowardly compared to women back in 1835? People are incredible weaklings. It just shocks me how scared they are, and they're worried. There's a video I watched on credit cards, and a lady killed herself because she had debt collectors calling. And she was all messed up and jumbly in her head and her thoughts. And her whole family said that she was a good, rational woman, but once these debt collectors got on her, she started going crazy. And here I'm reading about a woman who had soldiers, American soldiers, on her front porch about to raid her home, and she pointed a gun at them and was going to freaking shoot them down. She'll say, "I'll see your ass in hell if you take another step." Where's that bravery gone?